We're ready to move on to our next session, which will be federal agency updates. And so not all of our federal agency rep speakers are up at the table, but hopefully you're close by. So we'd like to first call in NASA. I know I see Mary. So we have, Mary Sladek and Christiane Diallo. If you could come on up. And just as a housekeeping, we do have our phones here with our app open, so anytime you have some questions, feel free just to send them, and then what we're going to try to do is have them at the end of each speaker.
Or you can be brave and use the mic.
Oh, that's true, right. We're just so used to, using technology now. So you want to come up to the podium? We have a clicker.
Oh, there, okay.
I'll come up when you're done.
So you just push the green button when you want to advance. Let me see. Okay, so here's a list of our presenters. We'll be introducing them as they come to the podium. Oh, I forgot the housekeeping. So if you're a member of the press, can you please identify yourself? I don't see any. And then just as a reminder to use the app, we just mentioned that. You can use that for questions or you can go to the microphone. And just as a reminder, this session is being recorded for our friends that were not able to make it here. It will be posted on our website. So we are moving to NASA now. Thank you, Christiane. Yep, yes.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Christiane Diallo, and I am with Grants Policy and Compliance. Today, I'll be sharing a few policy updates, some upcoming initiatives, and current and open funding opportunities within our NASA mission directorates. And after that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Mary Sladek, to talk about some of the things that are happening in the Science Mission Directorate. So our group, Grants Policy and Compliance, we sit in NASA Procurement Policy and Management Division. That group is led by our chief, Anthony's Crank. Anthony's and myself are your primary POCs for grants policy-related questions, and Mary is your POC for all of the program-related questions. All right, so the first item here on our update is the status of our conflict of commitment and conflict of interest policy. This was published in the Federal Register on January 31, and it closed on March 31st. So thank you to everyone who provided comments. We did receive several comments from you all and expressing concerns about the fact that we were combining conflict of interest and conflict of commitment into the policy. So to ensure that our policy reflect best practices as well as make sure that it's reducing burden to our research recipients, we're going to be modifying the language within that policy and also making sure that it aligns with NSF and NIH's policy. Once we finalize the policy, we're planning to implement it through our Grant and Cooperative Agreement Manual, and we will also be including a new term and condition that requires all of our grant recipients to comply with the policy. The next update on the list is the release of our proposals guide. We shared at the last FDP that this proposals guide was being released on February 14th. One significant update that we have is that we combine the guidebook for unsolicited proposals, which is now available in Appendix K of that guide, if you're not familiar with that. We also included a clear description of all of our key documents, key systems and programs. We also included some live links for our mission directors and grants fact sheet just to make it easy reference and access to our grant users. All right, so if you're not aware, NASA did publish its Equity Action Plan last year in support of Executive Order 13985. Within that plan, NASA identified grants and cooperative agreement as one of its focus areas, and then we're looking to advance equity in that. We also outlined a list of actions that we plan to take to advance equity in grants and cooperative agreements. But before I get into the actions that we took, I just wanted to share that we issued an RFI back in 2021, and that RFI was to get public feedback on some of the barriers that underserved communities may face when it comes to getting grant opportunities with NASA. So fast forward to April 11th, we issue a second RFI, and The objective of this RFI is to first determine whether NASA has made any improvements since we issued that first RFI in 2021, and also ensure that new recipients that did not get the opportunity to comment in 2021 have the opportunity to do so now. The third objective is to also get suggestions on additional barriers that deter underserved communities from participating in NASA contract and grant opportunities. All right, so in terms of actions and barriers that we identify, we learned through the RFI that NASA is not doing enough when it comes to outreaching to the underserved community, so we have been doing a lot of outreach through all of our mission directorates and the centers as well. Our office in particular, the Grants Policy and Compliance Office, did host an event on March 29th called Ask NASA What You Need to Know Before You Apply to Grants and Cooperative Agreements. And the purpose of this event was to raise awareness to the various NASA programs, as well as increase the participation of all of our grant applicants to NASA programs. The recording of the event is not yet available. We're working to get that posted on our website, and the link is here for you, for your reference. And we'll also have planning a follow-on meeting to the first Ask NASA event that's going to be in fall 2023. This will be with our new grant recipients, and we will be discussing any challenges and barriers that they have when it comes to implementing NASA projects. All right, another barrier that we learned is that NASA doesn't have enough information available when it comes to the grant opportunities that are available to the agency. So what we're planning to do is that we're going to be working to get our grant opportunities integrated into the acquisition forecast tool so that the grant applicants have enough time to learn about what's available and they can plan proactively and submit their proposals. And we are also planning to ensure the Plain Language Act when it comes to the document that we provide. Our proposer's guide, for example, right now, we're going to be modifying the language in there to make sure that the users that are reading it, that it's clear and concise. And we will also incorporate all of the elements of the grant's life cycle. Right now, the proposer's guide just focuses on the pre-award, so we want to make sure that it covers all of the entire grant's life cycle, so they're not referring to multiple documents when it comes to preparing their proposals. And the last update that I have here is the rescission on COVID flexibilities. We did release a notice on May 11th as a result of the end of the public health emergency. That notice went out from the NASA Shared Services Center. If you haven't seen it, it's on our website as well, and it includes a list of all of the COVID-19 flexibilities that have either been rescinded or archived. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Mary to talk about what's happening in SMD.
Hi, as Christiane said, I'm Mary Sladek, and I thought I'd share a little bit about me because many of you probably have not met me. So I like to joke that I'm 34 years old in Fed years. And the other thing is that I grew up in the NSF family, was there for 18, and it left home at 18 and married into the NASA family. I report to and support the Science Mission Directorate's Deputy Associate Administrator for Research. We call him the DAR. I'll say more about him a little bit later. And the DAR supports the oversight for the Science Mission Directorate's scientific competition processes for large research awards and for grants, cooperative agreements, and also for very large flight programs, which are contracts. Okay, so how do I advance?
Green arrow?
Green arrow? Okay, I didn't push it hard enough. Okay, so I'm going to try really hard not to read these charts, but I'm going to try to give you a flavor of the content. So each year since 1998, NASA Science has used a broad agency announcement classified as a NASA research announcement. And a NASA research announcement may award assistance funding, it may award contracts, and it may award interagency funding agreements. Our current NRA is ROSES, Research Opportunities in Space and Earth Sciences, And I don't know if anybody can see my headband, but traditionally, when in person, I would always wear like a dress with roses on it, but today I'm wearing a headband with roses. So, and I'll try to wear it tomorrow, so you can find me tomorrow if you want to talk. Each Roses compiles multiple solicitations. These are also known as program calls or a Roses appendix into an omnibus. Roses has about 100 program elements. It's over 1,000 pages long when you count all the appendices. And unfortunately, that's where we are now, and it's roughly doubled in size since 2005. We use the fiscal year in the Roses solicitation number, which is currently 23, but we don't issue it at the start of the fiscal year. We issue it around Valentine's Day. So the Roses year is actually longer than 12 months. And although we are currently in Roses year 23, there is still one Roses program element from 22 that is still operating. Each Roses element has its own name, and some of you may have attended our telecon or Zoom session yesterday about our new bridge program. So, Roses 23 mostly seeks grants and cooperative agreement proposals, but we also, SMD is very interested in funding research at other agencies that is NASA science related. This chart shows the scope and organization of the Roses appendices as of today. And this is a chart of lists, sorry about that. It includes open and what's not offered in Roses yet, this in 23, and what competitions are planned to be offered. And each of these appendices are written by astrophysicists, biological and physical scientists, earth scientists, heliophysicists, and planetary scientists. And just to be clear, I am none of those things. We also have 22 cross-division research competitions, including a new pilot for a research initiation award. Okay, so Roses 23 has been opened since about Valentine's Day, and there are two major updates to it that I wanted to share with you. These are found in the summary of solicitation and also in the 6 research overviews, such as A1, which is Earth Science Research. As in the past, if you have a Roses 2023 summary of solicitation question, please do email Dr. Max Bernstein at sarah@nasa.gov, and that's Sarah without the H because it stands for Senior Advisors for Research and Analysis. Roses 23 added a URL to help proposals write their open science and data management plans. And on this chart, it provides the email address if you have general questions about the open science and data management plans. We have our open science team has issued a open source science guidance, and you can find it on science.nasa.gov, OSS-guidance. Roses has been clarified to explain that the method of archiving software will not result in a weakness for proposal in Roses 2023. And finally, some, but not all, of Roses 23 programs are piloting a required inclusion plan. And we do get a lot of questions about the inclusion plan, and we have a work in progress webpage with resources to support the writing, the revision, or the implementation of a Roses inclusion plan. And you can find more about that again on our website, science.nasa.gov. And I should probably also mention that nasa.gov is in the process of updating its content management software for our website, so we're experiencing some very interesting transitions. So if you visit us and it's not working, please be patient. It will be working soon. So finally, in development, we have a Roses research request for information, and this is being developed by my boss, who I mentioned before, Michael New, and our Assistant Deputy Associate Administrator for Research, Dr. Dan Evans. And I'm going to pause here. This is not on the chart, but you might think it's kind of cool. You may have seen Dan's name in the news over the last year because Dan is coordinating NASA's independent study of unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Whoa, that's a mouthful. Yes, it sounds much more scientific than UFO, right? Not on this chart, but some of you may find it interesting that next week there is a public meeting of the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Independent Study Team that will take place on the May 31st between 10:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. And the meeting will be broadcast live by NASA TV, which means you can watch it on nasa.gov/live. And before that, you can also submit questions to the UAP team. And again, apologies for not putting this on the chart because it really only just came to me yesterday that you might care about this. It's science, it's https://science.nasa.gov/UAP. So end of that digression. Max is obviously involved in this request for information development, and me too. And so far, it's kind of simple. We seek input on ways the ROSES solicitation usability may be enhanced for proposers of all experience levels. And we're also looking for places in the text where ROSES might be confusing or unclear. Now, recognizing that there are probably better questions and you may have other questions, we hope that you will send us other ideas for what we should ask for in this RFI. So I know that normally we wait for the RFI to come out, but I'm here today to say, what should we be asking about how to make ROSES more accessible? Okay, so we have 7 backup charts, and I'm not going to do all of them. Christiane's going to have to do some of them. This one is just the section template section header for the NASA Solicitation and Proposal Integrative Review and Evaluation System, NSPIRES, which of course, all of our things are also linkable on grants.gov. If it's a grant or a cooperative agreement notice or a notice of funding opportunity, NOFO. However, the 2 that I'm about to show you from Science Mission Directorate, they're not on grants.gov because they're not grants. They are very large flight mission, and they are done under the NASA FAR supplement. One that has a mandatory notice of intent and has never been offered before is our Earth System Explorers program. And the mandatory notices of intent are due May 31st, same day as the UAP. And also we have an announcement of opportunity for a dynamical neutral ionosphere coupling dynamic under the Solar Terrestrial Probes program, which is in our heliophysics division. So with that, I want to thank you all, and Christiane and I will be here for questions, and I'm going to pass this back to Christiane. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So the next 2 opportunities that we have are from the, the Space Technology Mission Directorate, as well as the Office of STEM Engagement. The first opportunity is the University Small Stat Technology. This is a 2-step proposal. So the preliminary proposals were due on May 16th, and then the second proposal is by invitation only, and that will be due on July 18th. The second opportunity is the early stage innovation, and again, if you need additional information on these opportunities, you can access the link. These are live links within the slide. That one, the notice of intent is due on June 7th, and the final proposal will be due on July 6th. The third opportunity here is the Tech Flights Technology Advancement Orbital Flight Opportunities due on June 7th. Again, this is going to be the first step, and the final proposal by invitation only is due on October 4th. All right, another opportunity is the Innovative Advanced Concepts, Phase 1. And this one supports visionary research ideas through multiple progressive phases of study. And then if you needed to know what they don't have the exact date for this particular opportunity, but feel free to click the link there, and then you can find the exact date. And additional information as far as the current and upcoming opportunities within the Space Technology Mission Directorate could be accessed through the link that you have here on your slide. And the last opportunity with the Office of STEM Engagement is the Teams 2. This one is going to be, the actual release date is to be announced, but you can access the link here on the slide to get additional information. And if you have questions, feel free to send them to the email that you see here. I have one more slide. These are just some of my helpful links and resources. As Mary mentioned, the Inspires is the system that NASA uses to post opportunities, collect proposals, and select proposals as well. You can access that site to get information about upcoming grants opportunities. The next link is the Grant Policy and Compliance webpage. That is our website where you can find resources, policies, and guidance and training information as well. The NASA Shared Services Center provides you with resources, and that's the group that administers NASA awards, so you can access this website if you need information about what should be included or what is included in award packages. The last information that I have here is our NASA MSI Exchange. This is a platform that supports search for innovative academic collaborators within STEM. So if you're not yet signed up, we encourage you to sign up to the mailing list so you can get information about upcoming opportunities and just ways to collaborate with minority-serving institutions. That's all I have.
Thank you. I think we have one question. First, well, one question is, will the slides be made available? Yes, they will. I think they'll be uploaded into this app. As well as I mentioned, this is being recorded, and the recording as well as the slides will be posted on our website shortly following the meeting. So we'll be good with that. There was a question regarding, let me see. Sorry, this is the first time I'm using this, so let me accept that. Okay, so for approved, sorry. We are. I can go to a microphone if you're ready. Oh. No, I think what would you rather? It's up to you. We are seeking guidance on the allowability of international collaborations in multilateral versus bilateral projects. So far, we have only located an FAQ that addresses this point. Is there more information elsewhere?
You got it, Mary.
Yeah, so NASA does allow for collaborations that are no exchange of funds internationally. So a lot of the big flight missions that Science Mission Directorate do have international components. We often partner with ESA, the European Space Agency, or the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA. So maybe you and I can have a conversation offline, because to better get your question, what it is. And also, we have with us today, we're lucky to have Chris Murguia from the Grants Policy, who has been handling a lot of the international research security and conflict of commitment issues. Thank you. Okay.
We have another question. I see the two in the audience, and I'm going to jump to this one online and then get to both of you. ROSES has a complicated budget format and requirements that are not like standard NASA. Okay, now my
sorry, it
my
should be an
question-
approved.
Okay,
Clearly,
What
you
are-
have
what are
one
you-
person managing the app. We're
what
learning
are you
this.
doing to my app? What just happened?
I'm putting it down.
Okay, I got it. All right, here we go. Please consider revising these directions and templates to be the same format as regular grants to lessen confusion. That was a suggestion. That was a friendly suggestion, because we're friendly with our federal partners.
It's
and
fine.
time and preparation. I don't know if that's something you can comment on.
Well, that's part of the reason we're doing the RFI, so I can take that back right away and say, hey, you know what? We should add a question about Rose's budgets to our RFI, because we just heard they're hard,
Yeah.
too hard.
Yeah.
So thank you. That's a great question. And just so you know, NASA won't let us download apps, so we don't have the apps on our phones. So I don't have the questions. So do feel free to write to Sarah at nasa.gov, and I will get it, Max will get it, Michael will get it, and so will Dan. But that's a great, thank you. That's exactly what I hope to get out of coming to this meeting today.
Thank you. Lisa?
Thank you. Lisa Nichols from the University of Michigan. So I really appreciated your acknowledgement of the community's concerns about the combination of conflict of interest and conflict of commitment, and that you're looking to align the policy with NIH and NSF. And I was just wondering if you can confirm at this time that conflict of commitment would not be addressed at all in that policy.
100%, yes.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
And I can't see far enough to recognize you, but please go ahead.
Hi, Jamie Sprague Cornell. I wanted to expand upon the first question, and I think some of the implications there regarding the NASA-China provisions and the restrictions there, since those have been in place since 2011, and certainly the environment has progressed as far as foreign influence goes in the last 10 years or so. Should we be expecting updates to those FAQs and guidance to better help us in the current climate?
I will go back and ask. It's not currently on the schedule to be updated. Just for folks who do not know this, NASA has a unique appropriations restriction. It is also on the Office of Science and Technology Policy that prohibits any kind of bilateral relationships, whether funded or unfunded, with China. And the grant Cooperative Agreement Manual and the Grant Proposers Guide both have some good footnotes in them about this. I don't know, Chris, if you wanted to grab a mic and say something.
Hi, Chris McGeehan, it's a grants policy. I actually have some updates that I haven't shared with Mary yet. So there is a review, NASA's Office of International Interagency Relations and NASA's Office of the General Counsel, OGC, are conducting a review of the China policy language that's in our Grant Cooperative Agreement Manual right now. That's all I can say about that at the moment, but we are conducting a review of that language. And once that review process concludes, and if NASA's additional FAQs are warranted, right, then we'll release additional FAQs and update our policy in the GCAM as necessary. So stay tuned.
Follow-up? Because the FAQs as written now are convoluted at best, and certainly there are circumstances that are difficult to navigate, because again, these were written 10 years ago when our concerns were different. Who should we be reaching out when we have those unique considerations? Is that program officers? Is that your office? Is that Mary? Where can we get help with navigating that space?
Reach out to your grant officer, right?
Okay.
Whoever the grant officer is on that grant. You can also CC the technical officer for that grant if you know who that is. First point of contact will be your grant officer,
Right.
and then they'll get that question over to the correct office in NASA, right? So
Okay.
it might be NASA Grants Policy, might be our Office of International Interagency Relations, right? It depends, but yeah, go to your grants officer first.
Okay.
Right. The only thing I would say is that what happens is sometimes we get questions from people who do not have current NASA funding, because people do not want to waste their time putting in proposals that involve China if it's going to be deemed as non-compliant or ineligible. So we are aware of that, and that is the current questions and answers are related only to roses, only to what's on the Sarah pages, and that's how I took the question. I'm really happy to hear, Chris, that there's going to be broader, and I know that you've been working this, and we've been going back and forth a lot on it over the many months, but there are some practical, since it is expensive to propose to NASA, I don't know if it would help. We also have language in the AOs that I mentioned related to China. I don't know if you've ever looked at those. You have, okay. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
No, I appreciate the feedback, and absolutely the intent to review that in the current climate is much appreciated, I think, probably from all of us here, so thank you.
Yeah, because it's not just on grants and cooperative agreements, it also impacts contracts, NASA contracts.
Okay, well, thank you, NASA. We're going to move on to the National Science Foundation. We have Beth Strausser.
Okay, well, good morning, FDP. I can't tell you what a delight it is to be here in person and to look out and see all of your smiling faces after this, 3 years of the winter of our discontent. So it's just fantastic to all be gathered together in person. I am Beth Strausser. I'm a senior policy specialist in the policy office at the National Science Foundation, and have a number of NSF colleagues here with me, but I wanted to particularly acknowledge my two awesome policy office colleagues that are here with me today, Samantha Bruton-Hunter and Jeremy Leffler up at the front here. So, yay! So I appreciate them, coming down and lending some moral support here. Okay, all right, so I am going to cover some highlights of the current proposal and award policies and procedures guide, that's NSF 23-1. I'm gonna touch briefly on the draft PAP guide that's out in the Federal Register right now for public comment. And then I'm going to give you just a heads up about some upcoming outreach opportunities that we have. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the current version of the PAP guide, that is NSF 23-1, is unique because it has 3 different effective dates, actually. So January 30th, 2023 was the overall effective date for the PAP guide. And then there are 2 other dates that we identified within the document to ensure that you all in the community have, sufficient time to basically make changes to your policies or procedures, systems, and to also, train your faculty and staff. So there is a July 31st, 2023 effective date. And that is for the new training requirement for the Responsible and Ethical Conduct of Research, or RECR, that is mandated by the CHIPS and Science Act. And that revised certification requires that RECR training be provided to faculty and other senior personnel. And that RECR training must include mentor training and mentorship. And then the third effective date in the PAP guide is October 23rd, 2023. So as you all are well aware, I'm sure, currently senior personnel can use 2 formats for preparing their biographical sketch and current and pending other support documents. They can either use the fillable PDF formats that are posted on our NSF website, or they can use Science CV, which is operated by our good friends at the National Library of Medicine over at NIH. However, beginning October 23rd of this year, PIs and co-PIs and other senior personnel must use Science CV to prepare these documents. So, and that actually is something that came out of the PAP guide comment process last year, that you all let us know that you need more time to implement that change. So we appreciate getting the public comments, and we listened to that concern and delayed implementation of the mandatory use of Science CV. For 9 months, we delayed that implementation. Okay, an important revision that we made to this PAP guide is inclusion of the requirement that if a proposer plans to conduct research off-campus or off-site, that you have to have a plan in place regarding safe and inclusive working environments. So in lieu of actually submitting that plan to NSF, the AOR submits a certification that the organization has a plan in place for that proposal regarding safe and inclusive working environments for off-campus or off-site research. And in addition, you also need to check the cover sheet, the box, the off-campus or off-site research box on the cover sheet if your proposal includes, proposes to conduct off-campus or off-site research. So how does NSF define off-campus or off-site research? I'm so glad you asked. As noted on the slide, it is defined as data or information or samples that are being collected off-campus or off-site, such as field work and research activities on vessels or aircraft. In Chapter 2 of the PAP Guide, we outline what the plan must include and how the types of behaviors that you see in the first bullet point there, how those will be addressed. So the plan has to identify the steps that you as the proposing organization will take to nurture an inclusive off-campus or off-site working environment. It should also consider communication within the team that is away, and also back to the organization. Now, there are a handful of program solicitations from our biological sciences and geosciences directorates that are piloting a requirement that proposers upload that plan as a supplementary document. So normally, you would not have to submit the plan, but in the biosciences and geosciences solicitations, some of them do require that you upload that as a supplementary document. And those solicitations will also include information about how that plan will be reviewed, by the external reviewers. Okay, so here are some FAQs that we've been receiving about this topic since we implemented the requirement. So the first one is, how does NSF define the terms off-campus or off-site? And that's really up to you as the proposing organization to establish what constitutes off-campus or off-site, because it can vary based on the project. So and based on your organizational requirements and so forth. So once you've developed the criteria that will be used to make that determination, then you need to apply that definition consistently across your portfolio of NSF proposals and awards. Another question that we get a lot is, how do separately submitted collaborative proposals comply with this requirement? So if more than one collaborating organization proposes to conduct research off-campus or off-site, then one joint plan has to be developed, unless otherwise specified in the program solicitation. But only the lead organization has to check that box on the cover sheet if either the lead or any non-lead organization is planning to conduct research off-campus or off-site. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put in fly in the answer there. All right, and then one final question that we get is, must the plan be in place prior to proposal submission? And the answer to that is yes. So NSF, we place considerable importance on the safety and inclusivity of individuals supported by NSF to conduct research. So we crafted the language, pretty specifically to have that certification be required that the organization has a plan in place for that proposal that describes how the types of behaviors, specified in that previous slide, and it's also in PAP Guide Chapter 2E9 will be addressed. So, and that certification you provide at the time of proposal submission. Okay, and before I move on to the next topic, I wanted to also just mention something. It's not on the slide here, but our NASA colleagues reminded me that they were talking about the COVID-19 flexibilities, and I just wanted to mention that NSF, we also rescinded the COVID-19 article in our cooperative agreement terms and conditions. So we did that just recently, and you will, if you have a cooperative agreement, you'll see a amendment letter that updates. You'll get a new terms and conditions, set of terms and conditions for cooperative agreements. Okay, all right. So moving on, I wanted to touch on some important work that's happening in the federal interagency arena, and that is about revisions to the biographical sketch and current and pending other support. So NSF, we co-chair a NSTC working group, which is working to develop harmonized versions of both of these documents. And my boss, Gene Feldman, everybody knows Gene, has done a yeoman's job working with the other 25 federal grant-making agencies to develop common formats, and those common elements were posted in the Federal Register back in the fall, and we got the comments in, and so the formats are currently at OMB for review and approval. And additional changes will be implemented for NSF beginning in the FY24 PAP Guide. So as of this January, as required by the National Defense Authorization Act, we also require that all senior personnel certify that the information that's contained in these documents, in the biographical sketch and current and pending other support, is accurate, current, and complete. And that certification is done in either Science CV or in the NSF fillable formats. And one final thing I wanted to mention too is that we also updated the recent PAP Guide to encourage use of ORCID as a persistent identifier to increase pre-population, reduce some burden. So to reiterate, the current PAP Guide contains the requirement that senior personnel must certify that the information provided in their biographical sketches and their current and pending other support documents are accurate, current, and complete. In Science CV, that certification is completed upon download of the document, and that certification then is time-stamped by the system. For the fillable formats, the senior personnel complete the certification by signing and dating the document itself. So the language that you see here on the slide is an example from Science CV for the biographical sketch. There are some slight differences in the certification language for the biosketch and current and pending other support. Okay, so as I previously mentioned, NSF, we are delaying the requirement for use of Science CV until October of this year for the biographical sketch and current and pending other support. So right now you can use either format, but come October 23rd of this year, you have to use Science CV to submit that information to us. Okay. So let's talk a little bit now about when in the process NSF requires disclosure of certain information. So at the time of proposal submission, senior personnel, they need to submit their collaborators and other affiliations, their biographical sketch, current and pending other support information. That part, is not new. But pre-award, prior to making an award, with the implementation of the PAP Guide on January 30th of this year, proposals that may be recommended for funding will be required, or are required, to provide updated current and pending other support information so that we can see, the program officers can see that senior personnel still have the capacity to work on the project. And we also are looking too about like overlap and duplication with other projects. So we are only asking for that updated current pending other support information when an award is being considered. But as you all know, that's not a guarantee that an award will be made. So the operative word is may there. I know you all know that, but sometimes with your PIs, that gets lost in translation. Okay, and then with disclosures after an award is made, if the AOR discovers that a disclosure for current support or in-kind information wasn't provided at the time of proposal submission and should be, then they have 30 days to submit that post-award information request to NSF. And then finally, at time of the project reporting, the PIs and co-PIs, if they have new active other support that's been received since they got the award, then they need to report on that in their annual and final annual project reports. And again, that requirement is only for PIs and co-PIs. Okay, so we always get questions about current and pending other support. So again, as I did before with the safe and inclusive working environments, we thought we would just go over some of the maybe the David Letterman top 3 questions that we get in. So what do you do if there have been no changes to your current and pending other support and you're asked to provide a revised version when we're considering recommending an award? If there haven't been any changes to the information, then senior personnel just need to download the existing current and pending other support information and recertify it with a new date. Let's say you have a project that was listed as pending, and then it has since been awarded. So what do you do in that case? Do you need to notify NSF that the project has been funded? So yes. So after an award is made, then you would need to let us know. That would be a change in the active other support, and you have to report that to NSF, and you would just include that in the annual and final annual project report submission. And then finally, if an individual is not requesting salary on the budget, does the proposal still need to include or be listed in the current and pending other support? And yes, we get this question a lot. So basically, the distinction is that there's person months that are included in the budget, perhaps, but that is differing from the information that is included on the current and pending. So senior personnel are required to provide the number of person months or partial person months per year that's devoted to the project by that individual. And we do recognize that what may or may not be on the budget as far as person months may differ on the current and pending. So, and we use that information to assess the capacity of the individual to carry out that project, as well as help to determine if there's any overlap or duplication with the project being proposed. All right. Okay, so we have been talking so far about the current PAP guide, and now I want to talk just briefly about the next version. So, as you may be aware, as part of our implementation process for the document, we invite the external community, we invite you all to comment on the proposed changes. So, the draft PAP guide, which will be 24-1, was posted in the Federal Register on April 13th for a 60-day public comment period. And you can access that either through the Federal Register or by going directly to our Policy Office website. And to facilitate your review, we have put the revised text, we've put that, highlighted it in yellow throughout the document, and where appropriate, we have put explanatory comments in the margins in what we affectionately call the comment bubbles. So that you'll be able to see, what, basically a little explanation or description of what that comment, what that revision is all about. So comments have to be submitted by June 12th, and please submit your comments using that green button there in the Federal Register, the submit a formal comment. And please do not send an email to the policy office. We need to have it come in officially. The only official record of it is you have to go through the Federal Register and submit your comments that way. And then, of course, once we get those, we always take a look and consider those, make changes as necessary before we submit the draft PAP guide to OMB for their review and approval. And the timeline for implementation will be similar to previous PAP guides, where we expect that we will make it available, the final document available for a fall 2023 release, and then it will become effective 90 days later, so sometime in early 2024. All right, and just to wrap up, so we have some outreach opportunities that I wanted to mention. So the Spring 2023 Grants Conference will take place virtually the week of June 5th, and no-cost registration is currently open. We also continue our webinar series that we focus on single topics on the webinar. So we just recently had a joint webinar on the biographical sketch and current and pending other support, and using the NSF and Science CV formats. So that also included a demo of Science CV that I think is very helpful and will answer questions maybe that your faculty have. So if you go out to our policy office website, we have these on-demand presentations, and you can sign up to get notified about other upcoming events like the webinar series and future grants conferences. So you just go out to the website on the slide here and click notified, get notified to sign up. Okay, and there are a number of resources that we have available to you. So this slide just contains a smattering of them, but I really encourage you to access our policy office website for further information. Okay, and that is all I have. So yeah, so I think we probably have time for some questions.
Unfortunately, we don't.
No?
We
Oh,
have
okay.
about a half hour. We have two more presenters.
Oh, okay.
But
Oh,
what I
sorry.
wanted to point out to everybody is that we're gathering all of the questions, and the great thing about the app is that they will be in there, and then we can loop back with our presenters and obtain the answers. And if somehow we end up with shortened and we have a few at the end, we will definitely take them. But I just want to make sure we have all of our presenters have a chance to speak. So we have a lot of questions, so trust me, you will be hearing from us.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Excellent
sorry about that.
questions.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So
over.
I'd
Okay.
like to invite Wade Wargo from ONR up to the. Hey, Wades. Just hit the green thing right there.
Oh, in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Hey, everybody. I'm the head of ONR's post-award division, so for those of you who have grants across DoD, we're often, if you're from a university, we're administering your award. We also have the indirect cost function, so just a little context, I'm not in a policy position, but do interact with those folks occasionally. So I just had a few brief updates. One was to talk about two new applications we're about to start using. One you won't interface with. It relates to an official award file, and another relates to a reporting and a communication portal. Both those things are through DoD's, you've heard of the PI suite, the Procurement Integrated Enterprise Environment. and I'll go into that in a bit. I'm going to mention a few personnel updates, also some selected upcoming due dates for some of our funding opportunities, and mention a project we had to get caught up on single audit resolution, and just some reminders about no funds extensions. All right, so this slide, I guess I'll just start by saying, before I sort of go into the slide, that for quite a few years we've had a project to replace our current electronic award file system. It was an outdated system that didn't comply with records retention requirements, so we've had that project for quite a while, but only last year did we actually select a product. We looked at a few alternatives, and through that decided to go with this PI, which for those of you who have DoD grants and use WAF, which is the wide area workflow where you go to ask payment, the WAF is in PI, and it has many other modules. So we've decided to use PI for both our official award file, which you won't have access to, but I'll bring it up because we spent a lot of time on it. We're excited about it, and it'll probably give you some important context to other decisions we're making. And then the other thing we're going to have is a submission portal or communication portal, which I guess maybe 10, 15 years ago we had one and we lost it. So in many ways we're just getting things we had before, and many of the other federal agencies already have. So the general idea with the portal is that we'd have one spot that you could submit your interim and final reports, and also use as a general communication tool, and maybe have it for other submissions as well. The initial use of this tool would be for certain types of interim and final reports, as well as perhaps a way to ask for no cost, no funds extensions, whatever you want to call them. So that's sort of the initial use. The overall goal of the project, this particular project, was to reduce administrative burden, what this group is all about, and really the way in which we're doing that is just to help line their receipt and acceptance process for those documents. Our group, one of our big things that we do is close out, and getting acceptance of reports is often very difficult, and I'm not sure why that is, but hopefully this having just a one-stop shop, or the goal to have a one-stop shop, will help with that. And then just the third element with the goal was just with getting things out of people's email. Oftentimes the reports are going into people's emails. The great, everyone's retiring and things are getting lost. So just having one spot for people to go hopefully will provide that audit trail and make it easier as new personnel come in. So we're hoping that project will be implemented in August. They're already working on it. We're actually co-funding it with the Defense Contract Management Agency. The hope will be this tool works well for grant type reporting, as well as more contractual required things. So we're working at the hip pretty closely with DCMA on that project, and we're very excited about it. And let's see. The last bullet's just if anyone wants to help test that product out, there's a person's name there, Josh Kabish, who works for me. He's in charge of that project from O&R standpoint. So if anyone's interested in testing that, send an email to Josh. So the award file, again, this is the thing that sort of kicked it all off. You won't have access to it, but I just provide this sort of as something we've spent a lot of time on. One of the things we're excited about, since we have 5 offices, we do administration for awarding offices across DoD. I think at one point we heard that there was over 100, so we deal with a lot of different entities. And one of the ideas is, since we have this, as they call in the military, a purple function, or this DoD-wide function, that having tools that are in this DoD PI suite would be advantageous, because everyone in DoD has access to it. So the idea behind this is that if we have our own award file, we can actually give access to the awarding office to that. And I guess that's should be of interest to you guys, since if we're communicating better between post and pre-award, that hopefully you'll see a better product at the tail end. We're communicating better. Hopefully we won't be asking you for things that we generated. So that, I guess, might be the one goal. So we can both give them access to our file. Even if they don't use the file, they'll be able to go into Pi and see our documents and use them, but it also gives them the opportunity to actually share the file. So in other words, they could, over time, choose to use the system themselves. There'll be pre-award sections, there'll be post-award sections. We can see each other's, and so that could provide a lot of benefits. The second bullet talks about access to auditors. There's a lot of work usually done when we get audited by not just Navy, but by Army and others that are looking at our administration of, just say, the Army's work. And so the ability to allow auditors into the system will make things a lot easier. We no longer have to stage things for them, spend a lot of time putting things together in a place they can find it. We'll just be able to give them a role. They'll be able to directly go in and audit our files. The third benefit is just we found that by going to this new system, like half the information in our files are already from this Pi system. That's where all the awards get loaded and all the modifications. If you deal on the contract side, all the GFP things, all the invoice data is all from WAF. So there's a lot of data there that we can use. So we'll be consuming information in the system, so there'll be less chances of interface issues. And new sources of data over time we hope to use to improve the product that we give to our customers. It'll comply with records retention policies, and the biggest thing is, in DoD, the pie of the grants world relative to the rest of DoD is quite small, so we find it hard to have money to buy tools that improve things, and we've just found that being able to leverage the procurement machine really will help us. And they've been the group that runs this has been quite supportive in us leveraging their systems for grant purposes. So we think it'll save a lot of costs and allow multiple entities to use one system. So the system's supposed to go live tonight, and we won't transfer our files till sometime next month, so we'll be in the middle of using it hopefully next month. So a few personnel updates. Our current Chief of Naval Research is retiring, Lauren Selby, and next month we'll have an incoming Rear Admiral Kurt Rothenhaus, who's coming from NavWar. He was the head of the POC4 ISR group there, so we're happy to have him coming on board. We also have a new Director of Contracts. So as many of you know, Debbie Raffi retired last July, and this January, Jamie Thompson came on board. If he's raising his arm right there. So we're happy to have him on board. If you want to stand as well, just. Sure, I work for you. Okay. Thanks, Jamie. We also have a new military deputy coming on board. We had a Captain Williams who left last month who would report directly to Jamie, and we have an incoming Commander Speed who's coming in on June as well, so lots of changes in June. I often struggle when we do these updates to tell you things I think you'll care about, but here's just some of the topics from our long-range BA for those technical folks who are involved. These are just 4 topics I saw that had upcoming due dates of things. The first one, the physical and networking layer prototype, that's a topic that has a full proposal that's coming up June 1st here. The other 3 I won't read off, but they have recommended white paper due dates that are either June 5th or June 23rd. And then, I guess particularly appropriate from this morning's conversation, we have a Young Investigator program that has its own announcement, and there's a deadline for questions of June 23rd, and then the applications are due July 7th. And I provide the link to our funding opportunities link there, and just make a quick note that those dates are current as of earlier this week when I put them together. All right, so back in FY20, we started a process of getting caught up on our single audit resolution. We were extremely behind, and so we put in some management control measures in place to improve that. And I say this just because probably many of you, if we have your awards, started hearing from us a lot on this. And I know some of our other federal agencies started this, those entities that are COG agencies started getting a lot of emails from us, and they probably wondered what was going on. But so we put the foundation in place in FY20 to get caught up on our backlog of particularly single audit findings, but it was broader than that. It was also contract audit resolution as well. But this is just to say in FY21 and 22, the processes were effective, and we've made significant process to catch up. Also in 23, we had a new internal electronic system that's tracking the pending findings and also gives us data on, the amount of time it took to resolve, and just metrics basically on the completed findings. So this is all to say, mission's not yet accomplished, but we've made significant progress, and we hope to catch up in the next few years. So if you've heard more from us on that, that's because of that. Last slide here is just some reminders on no-cost extensions. Just a reminder, when requesting it, please request it timely in accordance with the terms and conditions. For O&R awards, at least, we've got a provision that asks you to submit at least 10 calendar days before the end of the period of performance. And just a reminder that DoD typically does not use the unilateral one-time extension like other federal agencies do, so you're going to need an extension approved by a grants officer. And this is also with a lot of people leaving and shifts in workload. I encourage you to send follow-up emails. After you send the initial one, if you don't hear back, feel free to keep sending emails, because we want to make sure we're responding. And if you have problems getting a pulse from somebody, the last web link there has all of our regional offices and has group email inboxes that are monitored. So hopefully you can get a response that way. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Wade. Okay, as I said, keep the questions coming, because we will have follow-up with our agency presenters. So next up is our NIH representative, Kasima Garst.
Bear with me, I'm vertically challenged. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kasima Garst. I am the Deputy Director of the Division of Grant Systems Integration within NIH's Office of Policy for Extramural Research Administration, or lovingly known as OPERA. I am happy to be with you today, and will be providing some policy and system process updates on behalf of NIH, as well as some standing policy reminders if time permits. So let's go ahead and dive in and start off with a few policy updates of note. So starting off, I wanted to let everybody know that in April, we issued a guide notice announcing that NIH has joined other federal agencies in the use of the terminology Notices of Funding Opportunities, or NOFO, and has begun phasing out the use of the term Funding Opportunity Announcement, or FOAs. This terminology will now align with the 2 CFR 200, the uniform guidance, as well as making sure that we have a little more consistency federal-wide. You will see both terms during this transition period. Please bear with us. There are a lot of websites and systems and things to update, but know that those are synonymous with one another, as well as funding opportunities. As my other colleagues have mentioned, the COVID-19 public health emergency expired on May 11th. This means that effective May 12th, NIH no longer issues emergency funding opportunities related to COVID-19. However, ongoing emergency awards will not be impacted and will retain all existing flexibilities for the remainder of the current competitive segment. You can contact your grants management or program officials listed on the funding opportunity or your most recent notice of award if you have any questions about specific projects. It's also important to note that there is a common rule requirement to use the single IRB for NIH-supported multi-site studies. During the COVID-19 public health emergency, NIH considered and granted exception requests to the single IRB requirement. NIH will no longer be granting new exceptions under this provision. However, all exceptions that have been granted by NIH prior to this date will be in effect for the duration indicated within the determination letters. Also during COVID, NIH had an exception that allowed certain applicants to submit updates to preliminary data for after application submission and prior to review. With the end of the public health emergency, this exception has been replaced with an updated policy, and applications submitted for today's due date, May 25th, and beyond, NIH will accept a one-page update with preliminary data as post-submission materials for competing Type 1, R01, R21, and R03 applications, including resubmissions. But please note, this is only if the funding opportunity used for submission allows for preliminary data in the application itself. Post-submission materials will not be accepted for emergency revisions and urgent competitive revision applications because they undergo an expedited review. Moving on to updates related to the SBIR and STTR small business programs. On September 30th, the SBIR and STTR Extension Act was signed into public law. The law reauthorized the SBIR STTR program and pilot program under the Small Business Act. The law also included some key requirements for small business concerns, including defining application submission requirements and criteria for restricting awards and requiring repayment. Additionally, federal agencies are now required to assess a small business applicant's foreign affiliation. NIH has already issued a guide notice that is outlined on the slide related to changes in minimum performance standards for small business applicants, and will be issuing additional policy guidance on the additional requirements I mentioned within the coming months. Moving on May 19th, NIH also issued a guide notice linked on the slide related to updated policy guidance for subaward and consortium written agreements. This provided several updates to Section 15.2, the administrative and other requirements for consortium agreements within the NIH grants policy statement. A Federal Register notice will be published to announce the update as well. Beginning in October 1st of 2023, this year, recipients will be required to ensure that all subaward and consortium agreements are formal written agreements that have been agreed to and signed by both parties. If a subrecipient is unwilling to agree to the terms and conditions of the agreement, then the agreement cannot be issued. Section 15.2.1 of the grants policy statement provides a list of all the factors that must be addressed in the agreement. These are also outlined within the guide notice for your convenience. NIH did add new requirements for foreign subrecipients that we wanted to call your attention to. These entities are required to provide copies of all lab notebooks, all data, and all documentation that supports the research outcomes as described in the progress report to prime recipients with each scientific update. And this must be done at least once every 3 months in line with the timelines outlined in the agreement. NIH encourages recipients to ask potential subrecipients at the application stage to submit language within their letters of support indicating their awareness of these requirements and their willingness to abide by all the requirements should the award be issued. Failure to comply with these requirements could result in NIH implementing any remedies for noncompliance as described within Section 8.5 of the NIH grants policy statement. So moving on to our data management and sharing policy. NIH, of course, as we said, are very excited to partner with FDP on this pilot project to support our applicants and recipients. The goal of this demonstration pilot is to generate greater consistency in data management and sharing plan requirements across the NIH institutes and centers and programs, and even more importantly, to mitigate the administrative burden for researchers and staff associated with the plan's development and implementation. The pilot will have 2 phases. Phase 1 was implemented on March 1st of this year, and the pilot participants have started using test templates that were developed and generated in the determination to generate greater consistency across NIH and reduce administrative burden for researchers. We're very happy to report that we currently have approximately 20 participants in the pilot and look forward to the feedback that they will provide as the project moves forward. Phase 2 of the pilot will begin in December of this year, and during this phase, we will take a deeper dive into the costing policies. The purpose of the phase is to determine and identify additional or unforeseen costs and the feasibility of placing those costs within the single category as we currently have outlined in our application instructions. I also just want to share on behalf of NIH and Opera that we share and understand your concerns about DMS costing, and we're working to ensure that we're doing everything we can to mitigate the administrative burden and eliminate opportunities for audit findings for the extramural community, even though we are working towards implementation of this policy so that data can be shared and accessible. We're thankful for the collaborative effort with FDP for this initiative and look forward to sharing the results with you. You also can check out the DMS pilot presentation later this afternoon that Michelle Bowles will be in. Hi, Michelle. So now, switching topics a little bit, I'm going to cover a recent update concerning the good cause extension for clinical trials results information and submission requirements. NIH released a guide notice in February to provide information to the community on the good cause extension process and criteria. The document contains a lot of great information on what does and does not constitute good cause, and how the responsible parties can make that request for the extension within clinicaltrials.gov's Protocol and Registration and Results System, or PRS. It's important to note that this request needs to come in prior to the date results information would have otherwise been due, which is the primary completion date plus 12 months. And it's also important to note that the request must include a description of the reasons that you believe a good cause extension is warranted, as well as the estimated date of which the results information will be submitted. NIH recently published a notice providing updated guidance to NIH recipients who need to return funds for NIH grant awards that have ended, but the funds have not yet expired. If the refund is $20,000 or greater, NIH recipients must submit a revised FFR and post the refund to the PMS document. If the refund is under $20,000 on a closed PMS subaccount or document, the funds should be returned to PMS with instructions to post the funds to miscellaneous receipts. Linked within the slide is a chart a page to the compliance resources and a chart outlining the updated refund process for various scenarios, as well as a link to the page on the PMS webpage that instructs how to return those funds. So I do have one systems process update to cover. We recently launched a redesigned X-Train module at the end of March. For those who may not be familiar, ERA's X-Train module allows recipients and agency staff to manage and process appointments, reappointments, amendments, and termination notices electronically. It also tracks the statuses and timing of the training actions. The redesigned module was updated to include new visual appearance consistent with the other ERA modules that have been updated, as well as add much needed added security and stability and a more user-friendly work interface, NIH leveraged this update opportunity to also provide some enhanced features, such as enhanced trainee rosters that include the display of the awarded trainee slots, and an improved screen for business officials that lists all the forms that have been routed to them. More detailed information can be found within the guide notice itself, as well as links to really handy ERA resources such as video tutorials and user guides. And I also wanted to say that we have been greatly appreciative of the support and the help from the FDP community who provided a lot of feedback and user testing related to this new module. So thank you for that. I'm going to only go over a couple of quick policy reminders given the time, and I do not want to be the person that keeps you from your lunch or your working meetings, if that may be the case. So I did want to put out a reminder that in April, we released a guide notice related to the NRSA stipend, compensation, and other income. This reminder is that the NIH stipends awarded to NRSA fellows and trainees are considered a subsistence allowance that are intended to help defray living expenses during the research training experience. Sponsoring institutions and federal agencies cannot issue NRSA stipends as a condition of employment. This reminder is not intended to discourage or otherwise prevent recipient institutions from hiring NRSA trainees and fellows as employees or providing them with the benefits consistent with what the institution provides to other similar career stages, but rather it clarifies the intended purpose of the NRSA stipends. This requirement is provided in 42 CFR Part 66, and more information is also available within sections 11.292 and 11.382 of the NIH Grants Policy Statement. As a reminder to everyone, effective of January 25th of this year, all applicants must use Forms H application forms for their grant application submissions. The key thing that we wanted to note was that the transition was required for the implementation of our data management and sharing policy. And the main thing that's new that I wanted to highlight was that you can expect updated information related to the RPPR and progress reporting sometime in 2024. We will be posting information about that as that gets finalized and made available. So with that, I'm actually going to skip ahead for time, and there's plenty there. Sorry. And just give you the points of contact for us. As our colleagues mentioned, the slides will be made available to you, and please reach out to us with any questions that you may have. Thank you for your time.
So I just want to let you know that the hot topic question that we kind of lucked out, well, our NIH guest lucked out not having to answer. Mike Lauer will be speaking to this this afternoon during the NSPM 33 session. So like I said, we will have the questions answered, but you will have your opportunity to talk directly with Mike later today. So with that, I'm going to adjourn and for lunch, and we will see you back at 1 o'clock with the different sessions. So thank you.